Gajananaya Namaha. Om Ganadhyakshaya Namaha. Om Vijnarajaya Namaha. Om Vinayakaya Namaha. So these are various salutations to Ganesha, and so many different praises offering descriptions of Ganesha, or Ganapati as is also called. Durja, the invincible, for example. Dharmik, one who is righteous and charitable. And also Rudrapriya, one who is the beloved of Shiva. You wouldn't think that Shiva's name is Rudra. And yet, if we want to find out what is the origin of Ganesha, we probably have to go back to the Rig Veda, not to see Ganesha in his form as we have it today. So today, of course, is Ganesha Chaturthi, where we celebrate the birth, if you will, of Ganesha, Lord Ganesha. And I suppose in Hinduism, it's a great puzzle to many people who are non-Hindus to see the very humorous form of the elephant-headed god. Oh, you Hindus, yes, you believe in the elephant-headed god, some people say. And Hindus are mild enough to allow Ganesha to be put on t-shirts and tracksuits and underwear perhaps, and so on, and not complain too much about it. But there is a great significance to all these various forms. Don't forget, if we want to deal with the Absolute, and if we want to deal with all the manifestations from the Absolute that we call Brahman in the Vedanta, then we have to be a little creative and artistic in the symbology of what we are visualizing and what we are representing. So Ganesha is one of the most beloved forms of this Supreme, but really is registered as, in a way, a minor deity. But how can we have minor deities and major deities when we declare that all these forms are simply facets of the one Supreme Entity? So we have to do a little bit of cosmology according to the Vedanta. And it's all based on Sankhya system of various tattvas or categories. And categories, one name for category is Gana. Ganapati, the Lord of categories, the Lord of groups, the Lord of clans. So it would be very interesting for us to understand the deeper meaning of this symbology and how it came to be that this form, this metamorphosed form, is not really contained like this in the Vedas. The seeds of it are contained there. There was a thought that was written today that summarizes the whole adventure of this Ganesha's life. I'll read it out and then commentate on each line. Red-hued god of world adored, stopped the path of Shiva Lord, sheared of obstinate blocking head, replaced with cosmic mind instead. And this refers to the story, one of the popular stories of Ganesha's origin. So we begin with a story, and I suppose we have to say once upon a time. So once upon a time, the mother of the universe, Parvati, was bathing in the Ganga, and she was scraping off the residue on the skin, and she was inspired by Ganga, and she also got the idea it would be good, perhaps, to use the scurf from the skin and make a child, a boy, an offspring. And this would protect her privacy when she was bathing. And Lord Shiva, her husband, comes along, wanting to see his wife, and the boy is instructed, anybody who comes here should be stopped. And so this boy, small boy, stopped Shiva, was bold enough to do that. And so Shiva sends for his troops and what have you, and they can't combat this boy. This boy has amazing powers. Eventually, Shiva shows his Rudra aspect. Now, Shiva, of course, in the Vedas is really Rudra, and the Rudras are a number of beings that are associated with tempests, associated with temperamental weather, and so red in color. Red representing a kind of anger, if you will, an unsettlement. This Rudra aspect comes out, and Shiva takes off the boy's head. And then, of course, Parvati is grieving. My son, what did you do? And so he looks around and he finds the elephant Airavata that came from the Milky Ocean, the journey of the Milky Ocean. And he takes the head there and puts it nicely on the boy, and the boy winds up with an elephant head, which many, many people find pretty cute. A cute pot-bellied being who doesn't move very quickly because he eats a lot of sweets. And so a wonderful favorite story, of course, is Mother Parvati takes her two sons, Murugan, and otherwise known as Skanda, and Ganesha, and says, okay, please now, I would wonder if you want to enter a competition, you can please cover the whole of the universe, the whole of the creation, and let's see who comes back first. And Skanda immediately gets on his vehicle, the peacock. Now we know Ganesha doesn't have such a prestigious vehicle. He has a little mouse. That's the humor of the Ganesha image. And on this tiny little mouse, he simply allows Skanda to go off on his journey around the entire cosmos. For himself, he finds it sufficient just to slowly take a journey around Mother Parvati herself. And of course, yes, because she is the entire universe. That story is there. Now, all these stories are a way of explaining certain things. There are stories that explain why Ganesha has an elephant head. There are stories about why he has this small and ridiculous vehicle, the mouse, and so on. But many of these morphological images come from geographical background, cultural background, but also a deep insight of mystics coming out of the depths of meditation. And we have to really explore, what does this mean? So historically, we really need to go back to the Vedas and see, is there any evidence for Ganesha there in the Vedas? And we do find it. So we have some famous Rig Veda mantras like this: Gananam, Ganapatihi, Havamahi, and Vishushita Ganapati. And the Ganapati that is worshipped today would be strangers to these two references, these two texts, which really highlight probably two kinds of origins. The Rig Veda deity Ganapati, Brahmanaspati, is also called Brahaspati and also called Vachaspati. He manifests himself through a vast mass of light. And he is golden red in color and carries the battle axe. And the battle axe, of course, is an important weapon of Ganesha. And without the grace of this Brahaspati, and therefore without the grace of Ganesha, the more modern version of it, nothing can happen, no rite can commence. Because Ganesha is also called Vigneshwara, the remover of obstacles. And this comes to our understanding of the flow of the universe. Everything is fine, everything is perfect, everything runs well in harmony. What do we call dharma? The world is running so smoothly, sometimes it is called the clockwork universe by determinists. And so, how does the world run smoothly in the midst of so many difficulties and obstacles at every single level? Well, there's an inherent movement that removes obstacles nicely. There is no obstacle that cannot be removed by divine grace. And there is no problem that you're ever given which doesn't have a suitable matching solution. That makes life a kind of game, if you will, if you have that bent of mind. That relieves a lot of tension. Dealing with the world with a sense of humor has every single advantage you can imagine. And if we have the knowledge, we know how to get around obstacles instead of complaining about them. But we all need divine assistance, the flow of divine grace to help remove the obstacles. And for this reason, no serious undertaking takes place without some propitiation toward Ganesha. Ganesha, the remover of obstacles. And all spiritual life and practice is simply a question of identifying obstacles, knowing how to get around them, and doing it. But there's another class of Rigveda deities, and these are known as Maruts and Marut Gana, and they're described as the children of Rudra. Rudra, modern day, if you will, Shiva. Shiva, many adjectives are taken and they are used as names. Shiva means auspiciousness, the one who is auspicious. And so this auspiciousness is characteristic of Rudra in a different mode. Anyway, the children of Rudra have similar characteristics as Ganesha. And in addition, they can be malevolent also towards those who antagonize them and can cause destruction, just like wild elephants. We like to think elephants are nicely domesticated animals, but that's because you never came across a rogue wild elephant, either in Asia or Africa. And if the elephant flaps its ears, then it's a signal. You have to be cautious and you have to slowly retreat or stand still. In any event, an elephant can mock charge you with a great deal of wrath, and it is highly destructive. In Africa, elephants, where they are prolific, there is a kind of head count annually to see the herd population increase. And they rub their backs against trees and can destroy whole forest areas. And so there's a practice, whether you agree with it or not, but there's a practice of culling populations of elephants in Namibia, in South Africa, and in Zimbabwe. And that controls the elephant population so that everything runs smoothly. So there is a double edge to this image of an elephant. An elephant is a vehicle. In the ancient days, we didn't have tractors or earth-moving equipment. It was the elephant who had the strength to do this. And so the elephant side of Ganesha, the head, really represents a remover of obstacles in a true sense. That's part of the symbolism. So the conjunction of these two ancient Vedic deities, I think from this we arrive at our beloved Ganesha. And that is both the form of Brihaspati and also Marudgana. Both of these deities come out like this. And it shows the antiquity of Hinduism, where as time goes on, ideas get evolved. For example, in the Vedic pantheon, we find, for example, Indra has great dominance. Vishnu is Indra's lieutenant. But as time goes on, Indra is just given a demotion and put in charge of a small 1/4 of the universe. And Vishnu, his lieutenant, becomes the Lord of everything, because Vishnu means all-pervading. And when we look at this description, we can see, yes, the Supreme must be a sustaining, all-pervading principle. And so Vishnu, rather than being a personality, becomes a principle of omniscience and omnipotence and omnipresence. So it is quite common to see this displacement of promotion and demotion. And it shows that religion itself is an evolving thing that has to adapt to the people of the day. Shiva means the auspicious one. And so the Rudra, the terrible, becomes Shiva, the one who is auspicious. And many other deities in the Vedas, such as Dios, Aryaman, Pushan. These are all quietly dispatched, even though we retain them in prayers, all quietly dispatched really into oblivion. Anyway, despite the fact that Ganapati is highly venerated and an all-important deity, his head is a mystery for many people. Why should there be this head, apart from the mythology that gives it? Mythology, of course, will explain it in many different ways. And so all of these myths are there, and accompanying these iconography will be wives, Riddhi and Siti, and the two damsels. One story goes that he cursed the moon, and the moon wanes, and he cursed the moon like that, since the moon was derisively laughing at him with his elephant head and was trying to refill his burst belly with the sweets that had spilled out. And he vanquished the demon Vignashara and successfully brought him under his subjugation. So all of these stories illustrate, of course, this is why Ganesha looks as he looks. But mere myths and stories don't really explain everything. So we can look at the etymology of the word Ganesha. Gana, as I said, means a group or a clan, a category of things. And here we have to look to our cosmology. So we find there's a supreme principle, an absolute. In Vedanta, we'll call it Brahman, but in the Shaiva tradition, let's call this Shiva. And Shiva has a Shakti, this great energy. And this energy comes as a potentiality called nature itself. We can call this Parvati Shakti. And therefore, from Parvati Shakti comes the son, an offspring indicated by the head of the elephant that represents a certain macrocosmic aspect, a certain cosmicism, a cosmic mind. And so from this cosmic mind is the creative principle of all the tattvas, or all the principles, all the five tanmatras that combine and recombine and become the world that we have. And so he is the Lord of these principles, the Lord of these categories of all beings. And he's therefore the cosmic mind whose expression is Om. Can you see any clues? Yes. If you look at the profile of the pot-bellied, tusked, half-tusked creature with the elephant head, with the trunk, you will, with a little imagination, see the Devanagari script that represents Om. You see the pot belly there, you see the half tusk, you see the trunk, you'll see the various symbols there. What is Ganesha? Ganesha is the representation of the creative sound principle of the universe, therefore the Lord of all creatures. By resorting to this, we will remove all obstacles. What a wonderful image this is. But there's also another aspect to the word, because Ga also comes from Gati. Gati, a kind of final goal. What is your final goal? The final goal is freedom, moksha. And so Gati, and then Janma is there, and that represents birth. And all birth comes from the cosmic mind. So we see everything tied up nicely, preparing us for meditation. We can sit and understanding then the symbolism of this, and added beauty, seeing the beautiful shape of the eyes. I don't know if you've ever seen an elephant's eyes, and the eyelashes which are there. They're most beautifully shaped. And so we can see these beautiful lotus eyes, as it were, with the flashing eyelids and the flashing, um, shape and structure of the eyes, and immediately becoming enamored. And instead of feeling sorry for the poor fellow because he's a trunk instead of a nose, we can see how multifaceted the trunk is. Anybody who approaches an elephant will know that the trunk is a multi-purpose tool. It not only acts as a nose, it also acts as a hand. And so this talented elephant is there representing all of these, and also all the things that he holds. What is he holding? Well, he's holding, being born from Shakti, he's holding some significant things. Normally his color is red, color of Rudra. Red, that is the color of love, but also the color as well of Rajas. And so there's a double edge to this cosmic mind. Both good and bad in our interpretation are coming from it, and both are required. So he's carrying a noose, typically. And noose is a symbol of attachment. Again, it's a double-edged sword. The noose can either attach you or you can be released from it. You can be released from bondage. The goad, angusha, which is used to control an elephant, is really an instrument of irritation to the elephant. It encourages the elephant to move. Elephants are trained with this kind of weapon, if you will, or this tool. And so the goad represents anger. Again, you can either be controlled or released as you want. And then sitting on a mouse, the Sanskrit word is musaka, and mus means to steal. You see, if you have a grain storage, it is the mouse that gets in somehow and steals the grain, steals all your prosperity and wealth, if you like, steals your integrity. Or he can represent, on the other side of it, subtlety. The mind is subtle, and the vehicle is the mind. And so the poem goes on. Ears for cosmic sound to hear. Now we can have a meditation on this. Trunk sweeps obstacles clear. Eyes shine through lotus shape, offering abundance, all to take. The pot belly represents prosperity and abundance. And then it goes on. On golden throne, belly curved. Leg is bent. The leg has to be bent because of the pot belly. Poor creature cannot do the Padmasana. It has to do the half to accommodate the belly. Embodied thus in playful form, we're finding a playful form, a humorous form, because life is not that serious. It is if you get entrapped. But the whole overall form is a little humorous. There is, of course, a park nearby, Victor's Way, where there are a number of granite statues carved in India and brought at great expense and difficulty. Tons and tons, each one several tons. And there we find Ganesha in different poses. And the sculpture, or the one who's designed the sculptures, has a sense of humor. One of the sculptures has an Irish paddy's hat and the Irish version of the bagpipes with him. Another one has the mouse is reading a computer, things like that, updated. The sense of humor is being carried forward into modern iconography. And then one golden throne, belly carved, leg is bent, half tusk preserved, embodied thus in playful form, manifesting of primordial Om. Now you have it. Divinity infused in earth's red clay. You see, why is he red? Because the sculpture in the mythology says it was from red clay that he was made. Round sweets offered on this day. Yes, on this day we offer round kind of sweets. garlanded neck with flowers hung, out of love and reverence, out of worship, out of a sense of thankfulness and adoration for this cosmic mind. Lord of beings, worlds are strung. Don't forget, the garland would represent all the worlds, and all the worlds are strung, and all the worlds are comprised of gana, many, many groups or categories of beings. And then we'll leave the prayer till the last part of this short discourse. The trunk in either iconography, by the way, could be bent to the left or to the right. He is normally seen helping himself to liberal quantities of Mordecai as a kind of sweet. And this mouse, of course, as we mentioned, is ridiculously small proportioned. It is seen near to him nibbling at his share of the sweets, hoping perhaps to gain enough strength to carry his master. It's a big task, this little mouse carrying this big pot-bellied, elephant-headed creature. And there is a third eye, of course. Third eye may sometimes be added, sometimes not, on the forehead, in the center of the eyebrows, but also represents this cosmic mind, this ajna. Of course, in some iconography, a number of heads may be raised from 1 to 5, and the arms may vary from 2 to 10 in some of the iconography. And the lotus, pomegranate, water vessel, battle axe, lute, broken tucks, sugar cane, ears of paddy, bow, arrow, thunderbolt, rosary book. These are some of the other objects shown in the hands, and these are standard objects in iconography representing certain virtues or faculties or instrumentalities that are required to overcome the obstacles and to proceed in spiritual life. Discrimination, for example, is one such weapon. And his Shakti is often shown in two forms, really, on his lap. The two Shaktis are Riddhi and Siddhi. And according to some accounts, she is replaced by Buddha. And of course, these represent power and attachment, both. Gana, as I mentioned, really means a category. Everything that we receive or perceive comes through our senses or gets grasped through our mind. It can't be expressed in terms of various categories. But the principle from which all the categories have manifested themselves as Ganapati, the Lord of categories, and in effect it means the origin of the whole creation. It means God himself in this form. Another factor we can observe is that creation is twofold. It has a manifestation of a microcosmos. We can call this Sukshmanda, we can call it. And then the macrocosm, Brahmanda and Sukshmanda. And each is a replication of the others. And so compared to a man, the representation of the elephant with the elephant head really stands for the macrocosm. And the human aspect, the human body side of it, would represent the microcosm. The two form one unit. And since the macrocosm is also the goal of the microcosm, we can see it's the head. So the elephant part has been given a greater prominence by making it the head, if you like, the headquarters or the goal, as we mentioned before. And perhaps the boldest statement concerning philosophical truths ever made is really contained in the Chandogya Upanishad in this wonderful statement, Tattvamasi, thou art that. And it simply means you, the apparently limited individual, are really in essence the cosmic truth, the absolute. It's a remarkable, bold, and truthful statement. The elephant human form of Ganapati is the iconographical representation of this great Vedanta dictum. The elephant stands for the cosmic and the human stands for the individual, and the single image reflects their mutual identity. Among the various myths that deal with Ganapati's origins, the one that attributes it to the scurf or the dirt that we have mentioned before, taken out of the body of Parvati, seems to be the most widely known of all the myths. There are a number of other myths, but this is the most widely known. And it's considered as odd and even a little odious. And it's so we can dive into this myth a little deeper. See, one of the epithets by which Ganapati is well known and worshipped, as I mentioned, is Vigneshwara, the remover of obstacles. And so he's the Lord of all that obstructs or restricts everything in the cosmos, including your own personal life. And anything that hinders or prevents you from this flow of spirituality that is already within us and that wants to flow toward a destiny of perfection. And so with the various grades and shades of the powers of obstructions, under the Lord's control, he can create a hell of trouble for us. Or if he wants, in fact, according to the mythological accounts, the very purpose of his creation was to obstruct the progress in the path of perfection. You see the story how he prevents Shiva from entering. And so it has the power not only to put the obstacle there, but also to remove it. In other words, in any event, for any obstacle, we require the input of divine grace. And so how does he do it? He's not appeased by proper worship or begging, please get out of the way, please give me access, or any of the undertakings, whether sacred or whether it's secular. None of them will meet so many obstacles that they will simply peter out. And this is the show that nothing can succeed without divine grace. The access of divine grace is through a purification of the mind. The access to this divine grace is this attunement and alignment to this cosmic mind. Bearing in mind also that this cosmic mind is your own mind. There is only one mind. There's only one universal mind. The so-called individual mind is a myth. It's a kind of localized reflection or localized transistor that has the capacity to tune into the cosmic mind or otherwise. And when we start doing this tuning, grace flows. See Ramakrishna's beautiful, beautiful statement that we repeat over and over and over again. The wind of God's grace is always flowing. We but have to set our sail. And then, of course, Siti and Riti, the very taste of which can gradually lead them away from the spiritual path. Then what does he do? And to test them thoroughly before conferring upon any being, the greatest spiritual boon of freedom, of moksha. He, being the master of all arts and sciences and the repository of all knowledge, he can easily confer success or perfection, siddhi and riti. Either perfection or success, he can easily grant both of them. His various shaktis represent these two things, which can be an inhibitor or can be an avenue toward the things. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven. Other things will be added to thee. As soon as we look for or go to the headquarters of the cosmos, we have all the abundance that we require that flows naturally to us. The test is severe. But for the good, it is fraught with innumerable obstacles as well. But the lesson is we know how to get around them by whatever means. We come back now to the small mouse, the vehicle, the Vahana. Yes, we can even take such a small and subtle thing as this and make use of it, know how to handle it correctly so that we can get around Parvati instead of traveling through the whole universe. It's a wonderful story that is associated with this. Anyway, when compared to the highest spiritual wisdom, which alone is really worth striving for, even Riddhi and Siddhi, success and prosperity, are like impurities, mala as it were. And since Ganapati's two consorts are these Riddhi and Siddhi, personifications of the powers of success and prosperity, he, their spouse, their husband, has been described as created out of Parvati's body, the scarf of the body. Now we find this deeper meaning of this very popular version of Ganesha's origin. Again, we can take the word Mala and read. We don't have to have any disgust or odium about it. But if Shiva represents the Param Purusha and Parvati represents his Shakti, then we can see this language of philosophy that Maya, Prakriti, this combination comprising the three evolutionary forces of Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. We can see how it is stated to be pure as compared to all these things, and Rajas and Tamas are said to be impure, the impure scarf. And since creation is impossible out of pure Sattva, even as pure gold doesn't lend itself to be shaped into ornaments unless it's mixed with baser elements, it has got to be mixed with Rajas and Tamas. Otherwise, you don't get a universe. There is no such thing as a state of pure Sattva. You can have maybe 98% of it, and minimum you can have 51% of it. Cultivate that for moksha, for freedom, just minimum. But you see, if you have 100% Sattva, there's no universe, there's no operational faculty, there's no function available. We need Rajas and Tamas. We at least need Tamas for sleeping. And we need Rajas for aggressive activity. But we also need a dominance, a saturation of Sattva. And this is the story. This is the story of our own spiritual life. So all of this has symbology. All of this comes out of the depths of meditation. And it is worthy of sitting down and considering as a subject of meditation the depths of meaning until we get to this aspect which is Ganesha, the Lord of all these tattvas, a cosmic mind. And when we get to this cosmic mind, we have arrived at the Lord of all the other elements. And in the structure, 24 item structure of the Sankhya's, coming to this cosmic mind is enough. In the language of the Vedanta, coming to the land, if it were, or the position of Brahma, the world of Brahma, the Satya Loka, we can either be reborn again for the service of humanity as a perfected sage, or we go on in our evolution through to the absolute freedom. And so Ganesha represents all of this, and today is dedicated to him. And as you can see from this explanation, it is not just for Hindus. It is simply one aspect of an explanation of a number of different creative images that we can use. And after all, will we not use, or will we not require 1,001 different tools or our difficult journey toward the origin of our own birth and life and death. The otherwise called Brahma, otherwise called Logos, otherwise called Word, whose expression is Om. This is the Lord Ganesha. So with all of these thoughts in mind, we can now say the final prayer that was attached to this very thought. O Lord, whatever hurdles and obstacles are in the way, you can remove them easily. Grant not that there may be no obstacles, but that I use your strengths and skills to sportingly surmount them. Let the obstacle of ego be reverently replaced by thee. And if we break this prayer down, we are saying that we accept the hurdles and obstacles in the way. Hurdles because we take them with a sporting attitude, knowing that we can remove them easily with divine grace. And so we're asking not that there be no obstacles or difficulties or problems, not at all, but we have certain strengths and skills divinely dispensed to us, and we can sportingly surmount them if we have a sporting attitude. And we can agree that Ganesha is a very playful version, iconographic version of this remover of obstacles. So let the obstacle of ego is the main difficulty, the ego obstacle. It's not a standard ego position. Every person has their own version of it based on their previous experiences, based on their individualities and personalities. And what a wonderful thing that is, that we're all different. It can either be an obstacle or it can be an expressive thing. It can be an open channel for divine grace to flow to others. It depends how we use it. And that it is reverently replaced then, if we want it to be an open channel for divine grace, by the divine and the divinity itself, is the purport of the prayer. I'll say it once more, just to summarize. I'll say the whole thing, just to summarize. Red-hued God of world adored, stopped the path of Shiva Lord, sheared of obstinate, blocking head, replaced with cosmic mind instead. Ears for cosmic sound to hear, trunk sweeps obstacles clear, eyes shine through lotus shape, offering abundance for all to take. On golden throne, belly curved, leg is bent, half tusk preserved, embodied thus in playful form, manifesting of primordial Om. Divinity infused in earth's red clay, round sweets offered on this day, garlanded neck with flowers hung, Lord of beings, worlds are strung. And with these small, brief thoughts and words, I wish you a happy Ganesha Chaturthi, and may you receive the divine blessings of the Lord of all beings, or Ganapati. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Thank you.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you, Swami.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Merci beaucoup, Swami.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you, Swamiji.